What's up you guys, Gongrongzong here. So I've managed to complete the raid in the first week. Extremely happy that we were able to do it as a team. And so I want to share with you from my experience what the best builds for the raid are, so that you can start building towards them. Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, here's the list. What the hell? That's fucking right. It's all DPS. All of it. DPS. What the hell, Massive? Okay, maybe I could be exaggerating a little. That's way too little detail, Gong. The builds are more specific than that. You gotta describe the builds a little more. Alright. Let me do that. Okay, here you go. Fuck me. G fucking G. Good game, guys. And as much of a joke as this is legit. The best builds for the raid is a DPS build. That's it. End of story. 8 gun-wielding DPS users will outdo any other build or combination by a mile. Why is this even a thing? Or more like, why in good God is this still a thing? Let's not even talk about the fact that the majority of skills are broken and that skill builds are now lagging so far behind they are practically unviable, something I predicted would happen after playing the PTS more than a month ago. I even did a whole video on it, make sure to check it out if you haven't yet. There is something seriously wrong with the game right now, and the raid has just accentuated all of this. The mechanics in the raid, as good as they are, and I do think they're good in many aspects, such as promoting communication and teamwork, do absolutely nothing to promote build variety. And that's terrible, because we're in a stage where already gun builds were dominant in open world content, and now they're even more so not just dominant, but basically required to complete the raid. I absolutely don't understand what is Massive's point of view. I am honestly still baffled. Why is there such a severe reluctance to promote other builds? I was pretty accommodating during the first few weeks of the game, but as time stretches on, and I think like many of you guys, our patience is stretching pretty thin. This is an RPG. It's officially labeled as an RPG. An RPG stands for role-playing game. And in a role-playing game, I want to play, drumroll, different roles. And there are no different roles in this game. Where's the tank? Where's the healer? Where's the spellcaster, the skill build guy? And I've mentioned this multiple times before. They already existed in the first game. And it was freaking glorious just seeing other players using different builds, utilizing different playstyles to enhance the team. The tank guy would literally be holding off an entire tunnel on his own, allowing his teammates to safely take shots from behind. The healer would often turn around crazy, irrecoverable situations from the brink of disaster, healing teammates out of an absolute bullet hell. The electronics guy would be hurling explosions left, right, center, a mini Michael Bay movie in the making. What happened to all of this? And now the raid, the endgame. The endgame content is absent of all of this. All of it. Look, this may just be my own opinion, but I believe that you cannot create a sequel that is so drastically different to the first and expect it to succeed. Imagine if, like, for StarCraft 2, 2 of the 3 factions were now useless. You had to use Protoss for everything because now the devs don't want people to use Zerg or Terran any longer. What? Or imagine if, like in Dark Souls 4, only the Great Sword is viable, because for some reason the devs only want Great Swords to be used. There would be a freaking riot. People expect certain things when you say that this game is a sequel. Similar to a movie, it wouldn't make sense for Iron Man to suddenly be absent from Avengers Endgame, would it? But somehow, it makes sense for all of the build variations that existed in the first game to now be mysteriously absent. And the worst part of it all is that the devs have seemed to make very little comment on this matter, even though it is one of the huge reasons for player drop-off. They've made really uninspiring comments, really confidence-killing comments, like, oh, we don't really know how to balance tanks because killing faster seems to override a tank's viability. That, I don't even know how to respond to that. You made tanks work just fine in the first game? Just speechless, really. And then to buff skill builds, you made skill batteries, which did absolutely nothing for actual skill builds, but was in fact a buff to gun and hybrid builds. Now we have hybrid builds that can easily obtain 3k skill power, and because they put an artificial cap at 3k, then now what's the point of pure skill builds? What is with this inherent, seemingly deep-rooted fear of buffing skill builds? I simply don't understand it. They are so far behind right now. Skill builds are so far behind right now that I can only see them as a speck of dust on my nemesis scope. And to make matters even worse, let's talk about the raid mechanics. Yes, there are instances where if you were more tanky or more healer focused in certain situations, it might be helpful, such as the person kiting Boomer around. It might be more helpful if that person had a high amount of self-healing. Or for the last fight, for the players that have to stay at the generators, it might be more helpful for him or her to be a tank. But that's the thing. They might or could be more viable, maybe, but barely, and definitely not worth the damage drop-off from having one of your party members doing no DPS. Where were the crazy raid mechanics that required a specific role? You know, like in other kinds of RPG raids, where a tank is actually required to tank the boss because he just does way too much damage to a single player. Or maybe where one player has to transport something heavy and is incredibly slow but has to walk down a long pathway open to continuous fire. A tank would be perfect for that. And what about healer-specific situations, where perhaps no matter what, one player has to be periodically sacrificed by a one-shot mechanic, and you need someone with a short cooldown revive hive to constantly res people. Or maybe an NPC that you have to heal up within a certain amount of time, or the encounter fails. A timed encounter where enemy AI attack the friendly NPC, and healers have to heal him to full to win the fight. Where were all of these? Why is every fight just a DPS the boss until it dies kind of fight? First fight, DPS Boomer ASAP, faster he dies, the better. Second fight, DPS the bosses, the faster they die, the better. Third fight, DPS both Lucy and Buddy, the faster they die, the better. Last boss, DPS the Rocket Men, the faster they die, the better. Burst DPS, coordinated DPS, periodic DPS, delayed DPS, whatever it may be, it's all just some sort of DPS that's needed, and the more the better. But okay, maybe Massive tried to make the raid more accessible by not having certain roles be a necessity. Maybe they tried it out and decided that they wouldn't work out. And for good reason, maybe they decided that a more generic design that accommodated more generic builds was a better option. But by choosing to do so, it's enhanced just how far behind all other builds are in the game. It has just solidified that no matter what piece of content is released in the game right now and for the foreseeable future, that there's no point in building anything but a gun build. And that's a huge problem, because it drives people away from the game. After grinding out a DPS build, there's literally nothing else to do. There's no other playstyles to explore, no other type of gear worth collecting. Build diversity is just completely non-existent. This is what is killing the game. If loot isn't worth getting in a looter game, then there basically isn't any reason to log on anymore. The devs have to get their act together with this, and stop repeating the mistakes that we already went through in the first game. No matchmaking in raids is but the tip of a huge iceberg that is definitely going to sink the Titanic if the devs don't get their act together, and fast.